Hey everybody, welcome back to Mel's Board Game Room. I am doing my top 9 games that I played during the month of October. I'm a little bit behind because my sister got married in my game room at the beginning of this month, and that kind of just pushed everything back. So we are ready now, though. We can get going with that. So that's great. Before we talk about the games that made the top 9 list, let me show you the stats. So during the month of October, I played 32 times with 29 different games. Now, October technically felt kind of light to me because we were planning a wedding all last minute that was happening in my house. But I did get to attend one day of Carla's scare treat. So I got to play a few extra games that one day. So that was good. Actually, you could see down there, the beginning of the month was pretty good, but then at the end it was getting a little bit slim because we were busy with wedding preps. So let's get started with the top 9 list, shall we? So in the number 9 position, we have Café Baras. I got the Kickstarter when it finally got the Kickstarter. This one didn't kickstart. It went straight to retail. So once it became available, I got my copy right away, and we've been playing it a few times, and I really quite enjoy this one. So it's a quick game. It doesn't take very long to play, but it has some really neat decisions that you got to do because each card has something that you could add to your cafe, either to the menu or to the atmosphere. And on the bottom of the card is an order for a customer. So you will need to either spend money to add things to your menu or items or entertainment to your cafe. But eventually you're going to run out of money. So then you're going to need to activate the bottom portion, and whatever you have available in your menu that matches what's in the bottom portion, you can sell that and you get a coin for each. Now, if you're able to fill every item in that order, as well as have something in your cafe that meets the ambiance that particular customer like, they will become a regular, and having 3 regulars will initiate the end of the game. And then at the end of the game is whoever's got the most points is the winner. So super simple game, super adorable. The artwork is just amazing. But Café Baras was my number 9. And then in number 8 position is Seasons. So I attended a game day at Carla's house, and this is one of the game that we played. I had played it before. It's actually a game that I have in my collection as well. But I hadn't played it in a really long time, and it is so interesting because you roll the dice, and depending on where you are on the rondel, which dice you're going to roll, and depending on which dice you roll, what type of action will be made available to you. And then you take turn picking the dice depending on who the first player is, or the active player that round, and then you kind of draft these dice that will represent what you can do on your turn. Now, some of this stuff will allow you to add so that you can hold or have more cards in play, because you have limited space. So, but once you build that up, then you can place more cards. You will collect some resources. I think they're elements that you can spend to place the cards, because you're going to have the resources to be able to place them. Being able to place cards, collect resources. The whole thing is so interesting. I hadn't played in a really long time, but I really quite enjoy that one. So Seasons was my number 8. In number 7 position is a game that I purchased recently. One thing I like to purchase is the 2-player versions of bigger games. And I recently got Imhotep the Duel. So I'm a big fan of Imhotep, and I was like, but it plays good at 2 as well. So does it really need a 2-player version? Well, I really like the 2-player version. Totally changes the way the game plays. So yes, the theme is the same. Yes, what you're trying to accomplish technically is the same, but the way you go about it is completely different. So instead of placing your rocks, I guess, that were onto the boat, what you're going to be doing is you're placing meeples into a 3x3 grid, and you have like 2 different colored meeples. One is the white ones, one is the black ones. And then when there is 2 meeples in a row or column, the player has the option of activating the boat in that row or column. And if you do that, the meeples are removed from the board, and you get from that boat the tile that kind of represents what you're activating with it as well. So in the top row, if you were looking, the black meeple would get the blue, sorry, I say blue, but it's green, the green tile plus the gray tile at the end, while the white one would only get the middle gray tile. So it's really interesting how you position, and then the boats refill eventually, and you kind of get more stuff that gets added to it. And then you're going to be building your obelisk, you're going to be building your temples, you're going to be making your pyramids as well. And you have this thing at the end where you're adding different tiles that have a number associated with it, but the bigger cluster you can generate or you can create, the more points it's going to be worth. So you may want to try to make sure that the other player doesn't get those. That would be very helpful to them. So what you're building is very similar to the original game, but the whole way that you go about it is so different. I really like this one. Imhotep the Duel was my number 7. Then in number 6 position is another game that I purchased recently. Actually, I wanted the original version. I couldn't find it, so I bought the sequel, which was perfect for the season. And actually, with BOOoop, you can actually play BOOoop. All you need to do is not use the ghost cats if you would like to play the original version. So with BOOoop, you start with kittens, and you're going to be placing kittens onto this mattress. Now, if you place a kitten next to another kitten, either side or diagonal, it's going to boop it one space away. Now, it could boop right off the bed as well. And the goal is you're trying to get 3 kittens in a row so that you can trade them for cats. Now, once you have cats in play, keep in mind, a kitten cannot boop a cat because it just doesn't have enough weight, but a cat can boop a kitten and a cat. And you're trying to work your way to get 3 cats in a row to win the game. Now with the BOOoop version, you have these ghost cards that will go along the seam, and they just kind of go down that seam. And if you come side to side with another cat, it'll cause it to boop. Now normally when you boop, if there's another cat behind it, it stops it from booping. But if it's a ghost, they will skedaddle out of there, and they'll boop over those cats and get out of the way as well. So this one is a really neat 2-player abstract strategy game. I've played it a lot of times over the month with my family, and it's been a hit. So BOOoop is my number 6. Then in number 5 position, I attended Mountain View County Comic-Con. It's an annual event that they do, and the local libraries put it together, and actually it was really neat. I had a booth there, and we ended up playing Marvel Dice Throne. I'm a big Dice Throne fan, and Marvel was great. Now, the character I was playing as was the Black Widow, and this is a Yahtzee dice rolling style game, but what's really neat is you roll the dice trying to get a combination of symbol or number that's going to activate one of your attack, and then you're attacking the other players. Each player have their own character with their own abilities, their own custom dice, and it's very thematic to that particular character. I've played this with 3 new players that had never played Dice Throne games at all, and it was a huge hit. In fact, I would say Dice Throne, all the Dice Thrones really are great intro games to somebody who's not big into the hobby. That is normally really well received. So Dice Throne, Marvel Dice Throne was my number 5. In number 4 position, I have Clank Catacombs. So at Scare Treat, so this is my friend Carla's retreat. So we played Clank Catacombs. Now I have Clank. I have never played the Clank in Space, and I have Clank Catacombs and have played this one before. Now, what I really like about Clank Catacombs is the board is not going to get to same Z for you. Like with Clank, you playing it's the same board. Now, the reverse, you could play the other side. You can get expansions that adds different things as well, but the board is mainly the same every time you play. Now, with Clank Catacomb, that is not the case at all because you build the board as you play and you add these tiles. So the first few tiles are going to be like above ground locations, and then you're going to get your deeper tiles where you get deeper into things and you're building this cave, I guess, as you're digging through trying to find the best treasures, and you don't know when those are going to show up or where they're going to be. And once you've collected your treasure, you need to find a way back to the same to the entrance as well, because there's a lot of one ways in this one, so you might not be able to go back the way you came. But Clank Catacomb, deck building, dungeon crawl, really enjoy this game. My number 3 game this month was Foundations of Metropolis. So I recently purchased this one. I love Foundations of Rome. It's one game that's been in my top 50 games for the last couple of years, but I don't intend to purchase it because, one, it is huge. This takes an entire cubby and a Kallax shelf, and that's a lot of shelf real estate. Also, the price tag is pretty huge as well, so they remade it in a more kind of toned down version with Foundations of Metropolis. The gameplay is exactly the same. Now, one thing I was kind of sad that it would go away is how well organized everything is, but actually that didn't go away at all. So every player still get their own player board, the tiles all inlaid in there, and everything that was great about Foundations of Rome is in Foundations of Metropolis. Granted, Foundations of Rome probably still has the best table presence because with all the 3D buildings, it looks amazing. But price tag and shelf space, Foundations of Metropolis is the one that I own in my collection. Then, I didn't even show you here. So here's the player board, and you can see all the tiles, cardboard tiles are all inlaid in there and holds everything into place. So good. Now, if you have not played it, I didn't talk about the gameplay at all, really. So you're going to start with a few locations on the grid, and you're trying to bid on other locations to create clusters so that you can take those individual sites and build bigger buildings in there. Now, those buildings are going to give you money, they're going to give you population, or they're going to give you a way to score depending on what it's surrounded by. And the population will also give you points, so you want to make sure you build on that also. It's a very simple game to play, to learn, to teach. It's great to get to the table, and it plays fairly quick as well. So Foundations of Metropolis is my number 3. In number 2 position, I have Transmission. So at Carla's retreat, I ended up playing this one, and I had never played it. I didn't know much about it, and it was so cool. So you have these 4 little robots, and they are adorable. Like they're actual figurines. Like you get the little minis of these robots, and they're in somewhere in this map, and you're going to have cards that you can spend. Now it's going to have the symbol of the robot that you can activate, and depending on where they are, how far they can move, because you will be adding on your board different things to each robot. So they have an initial movement, but maybe you add something to it that gives it an extra 2 movements. So now you can move between, instead of just 1 and 2, you can move between 1 and 4. And you're moving onto the board going like it's a big circle. So you're going around and around, trying to land in an area that's going to allow you to activate what's there. So one section is going to give you a card that you can collect that gives you resources. One's going to give you a tile that you can build, and you're building like this tunnel system. One's going to give you resources like water or other type of resources. One's going to give you, because you got these little colored bricks that you're going to be able to collect, and then one's going to give you the ability to spend those bricks that you collected in order to buy these cards that you're going to add. Well, they're not cards, I guess they're tiles, and you're adding them to your board, trying to create because they're worth points, but then you can work with each other. So if you have one sock, it's worth this one much, but if you have the other socks, now you have a pair of socks and it's going to be worth more, and you're collecting these for points as well. Everything kind of comes together in the end, and then you tally up all these different things that you've built and get points for. It was super cool. I really enjoyed this one. Now, one thing I forgot to mention is everybody is moving all the same robots. So it could be like, okay, great, I'm going to move this one so I can land here and activate this. But before your turn comes along, somebody else moved it. Now it's like, oh man, I have to change all of my plans now. Super interesting. I quite enjoy this one. Then in my number one position for the month of October is another game that I played at Carla's retreat, and this was Kingsburg. I have played Kingsburg once a long time ago. Got to play it again, and oh my god, this game is good. So this is super cool. You have these dice, you roll them, and based on the value of the dice where you can place them to activate the person that is there. So it'll either give you resources or give you the ability to trade resources, or different things that you can do. And you can actually add dice together. So if I roll a 1 and a 2, I can actually place that on a 3 location and activate that. Now, one thing that happens is if I activate 3 position, the next player had a 3 dice, 3's been blocked. I've taken it. You can't go there. So in the beginning, having low dice is good because it takes a lot to make it into the higher numbers. But the lower locations get cluttered very quickly. Plus, you can also build tiles on your board. You have like all these different locations that you can build, and they'll give you different abilities that you can kind of activate, and you got to make sure that you have enough protection because there'll be things that'll be attacking every round, or you're going to war that the king's decrees. It is so cool. Super neat game. I don't own this one, but I want to. So it's now on my wish list. And Kingsburg was the number one game for the month of October. So just as a recap, these are the 9 games that made it into my top 9 games for October. And just to quickly show you, these are all the games that got played this month. Honorable mention, I want to point out Rebel Princess, which is a trick-taking game, and it was really good. So be sure to follow me on Facebook. My Facebook page is Mel's Board Game Room. I'm also on Instagram at Mel's_boardgame_room. I also have a podcast that I do with my friend Carla called The Board Game Specialist. And on that one, we're currently doing our top 100 games that we talked about in our first 100 episode. So we just did top 60 to 51. So the next one's going to be 50 to 41. So, we're getting into the good stuff. And then, of course, here on Facebook, on YouTube at Mel's Board Game Room. Bye, everybody.